Chapter 1. In the midst of an embellished place enlightened by numerous chandeliers and attended by a crowd that includes even the highest echelons of royalty, a singular voice pierces through, uttering the name Olive. Now who is taking this name and who is being called is revealed in an instant. The son of Marquis Enorbia Oscar proceeds with his sentence, noting that Olive is now paying attention to him. I am calling off the engagement. His declaration leaves Oscar astonished, prompting him to seek clarification. She turns around to continue saying, "You don't want to marry me anymore? Olive Vias is the daughter of the Duke." Enorbia replies to her confusion that she knows perfectly well why he was doing this. He further exclaimed that there was no explanation required further. As the conversation was going on between the two, people around started whispering and gossiping. They revealed that Olive is temperamental, but Enorbia wasn't opposed when the marriage was arranged by the two families. They started to question the truth that if Enorbia was against the relationship from the start or something struck his mind just then. They further gossiped that Olive tormented any women who even tried to get close to Enorbia. They concluded this was the reason why Enorbia was unable to stand it anymore and made this decision. Meanwhile, a voice provides narration that this entire scene is from the novel area of the Imperial Rose. His Highness, the Crown Prince, appears on the scene. People move aside to make a way for him to be with the couple. Everyone gets silent as if they are afraid of his reaction to this all. This character is named as Reynold Hurt in the novel. The voice has read this book to front over 10 times, but she never imagined that she would become a character in the novel one day. And so, the identity of the voice is unveiled, none other than Olive Vias herself. Ironically, the character the narrator held the most contempt for. This character is categorized as the cutthroat supporting female character who is always up to no good. Since she has already read it till the very end, she knows that Olive dies a miserable death befitting any villain. Realizing that, she gets panicked and exclaims that she doesn't want to die. But the voice has already died. The voice is of Jiang Mi, an office worker who stayed in office till late night to help her coworker, but suddenly died of a heart attack. Now she believes she time-traveled to the world in the novel she used to read often, just to become the character she despised the most. She thinks that this was a punishment to her since she was always criticizing the character off in online discussions. Olive's demise was destined since she was about to frame heroine Corellia and ruin her family's reputation, as a result of which she was to be executed by the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince, present within the scene, addresses Olive and asks her if she has any objections to the engagement being annulled, but she is not in the position where anything would make sense and she can answer anything appropriately. Instead, she is romanticizing how handsome he looks and how she can have more than one lover. Suddenly, a voice interrupts her thoughts as well as the Crown Prince. These false rumors must have upset you. Olive was taken aback by the voice that was defending her. The voice is of Corellia Neillet, daughter of the Earl, who further explains that she doesn't believe all of this and blames it all to be a mere exaggeration. She assures Olive that Enorbia will forgive her if she explains the situation well. In the narrative's original course, Corellia is the heroine, the Imperial White Rose, embodying innocence and compassion. Jiang Mi, however, cynically doubts her authenticity, believing it to be a facade. People start gossiping around how her innocence has put a blindfold on her eyes that she is trusting Olive. Chapter 2. Jiang Mi's revelation unfolds, shedding light on her suspicions about Corellia's sincerity. She discerns that beneath Corellia's compassionate speech lies a cunning intent. In reality, she was trying to insinuate that Olive was uncivilized. In the novel, the scene is written as Olive attacking Corellia in a fury, negatively impacting her public image even further. Not only that, the Crown Prince already had a bad impression of Olive, but after all the chaos, he started to actively dislike her and eventually lead her to her demise. Reynold addresses Olive once again, repeating his question about having any objections to calling off the engagement. To everyone's surprise, Jiang Mi, impersonating Olive, pays her respect to the Crown Prince by lifting her dress and bowing. She mentions that she has no objections to the annulment of the engagement, contrary to the storyline of the novel. His Highness is puzzled listening to her answer. She further explains that the reason that she was completely okay with this situation is that she had fallen for someone else, but this engagement was a hurdle in between. Since she was engaged, she couldn't tell anyone. She thanks Enorbia for making it easy for her. In a twist of irony, Jiang Mi manipulates Enorbia's game by surprising him with an unforeseen response. She played a game with Enorbia since his intention was to make Olive the laughingstock by creating chaos and fuss amongst the crowd. But since Jiang Mi took an astonishing turn, she somehow gave him a taste of his own medicine. She addresses the Crown Prince and apologizes for disrupting the festivities by her personal affairs and makes her way to leave at once. But the curiosity of Corellia stops her. She is amazed by Olive's confession of having feelings for someone else. She asks her if she is getting married soon. A thought crosses Olive's mind instantly. Being married. After her engagement being called off, it was obvious that Via's family will start finding a new fiancé for Olive. She will be able to meet so many handsome guys in the novel she didn't pay much attention to while reading. But the meet-up means selecting one as her life partner, for which she wasn't ready and she needed an excuse to keep them distant and stay single. Corellia kept blabbering about her curiosity to know who that man is who made her choose him even over an Orbia. Here comes the best excuse from Olive, her saying the name of Reynold as the man she is attracted to. The Crown Prince, sparking his surprise and mild irritation, dismisses the entire declaration as utter nonsense. In the novel's subsequent chapters, Olive's domineering father, Wildino Vias, arranged several blind dates soon after she lost her fiancé. These men had been forced by their families to go out with Olive since she had a notorious reputation and was despised by all. Chapter 3. As the story progresses, Olive's reputation takes a bitter turn, spiraling into deeper negativity. However, this trajectory is bound to change, for it is no longer Olive at the center of the narrative, but Jiang Mi. Contemplating the chapters that lie ahead and her own destiny, Jiang Mi muses on how to evade the forthcoming events. She ponders that putting up with blind dates will not be easy for her. She will have to avoid any type of commitments, even if someone takes a shine to her. She had no option of sabotaging the dates, as there was a threat of people talking ill of her. All these predictions led her to an ideal idea. The only option she came up with was a bold confession of her affections for the Crown Prince. This way, neither her father won't force her to marry anyone, nor will the Crown Prince agree to accept her as his partner. This way, she is relieved that she is not getting married at all. Later, we are revealed by the true self of Corellia. The one Olive depicted Corellia had cunningly provoked Olive in attempts to stir up trouble, positioning herself as superior in comparison, just to lead people to the conclusion that Corellia is better than Olive. But she is surprised that today, Olive is acting differently and rather mature. What amazes her most is Olive having feelings for the Crown Prince. Upon hearing the confession, Reynold says that they don't even know each other. To his claim, Olive mentions that he is forgetting the time they used to spend together. Reynold is puzzled and rather disgusted that she is just using him as a distraction and it is all a foolish display. Overwhelmed with emotion, Olive departs, her tears a testament to the sincerity of her feelings, uttering that she will never stop loving him. As she leaves, the people hearing and witnessing the entire scene start gossiping that they are not much surprised since almost everyone dreams of being the Crown Princess and her feelings seem genuine. Overhearing the murmurs, Corellia grins triumphantly, thinking that Olive doesn't have a chance in becoming the Crown Princess ever. In her estimation, that role belongs solely to her. Olive, upon reaching the open sky, realizes that the world in the novel is similar to her world. She further accepts that she had been overworking, completely ignoring the rest of the world, making no time to see and appreciate the sky. Now she is dead and has no chance of going back, but she has got a chance in another world, this completely different world. She knows what lies ahead in the novel, but she doesn't know how she is going to lead this role now onwards with unwavering determination. She resolves to seize the moment and embrace her new life, even if it means a century of exploration. While she is making up her mind and cheering herself to enjoy this life, someone calls her from behind. He asks her if they should leave now. Chapter 4. The man Olive heard from behind was equally as handsome. Her long-held dream of meeting the dashing boys from the novel was finally coming true. This man turned out to be Olive's knight, Raoul. He informed her that the carriage was ready for their departure. When Jiang Mi recognized him, a pang of pity hit her. In the past, the real Olive used to make Raoul bend down so she could use him as a step to mount her horse. This time, things were different, Jiang Mi told Raoul he didn't need to do that and climbed into the carriage herself. Raoul found this behavior strange. What's more, Olive touched him, something he strongly disliked. The new Olive was determined to change Raoul's opinion and stop his hatred. Upon reaching home, her maid delivered the news that his lordship wished to see her. Little did she know what awaited her. She tried to recall the novel's details, but they were not quite detailed, only mentioning that her father would punish her severely. Now, though, she felt equipped to handle the situation. When the Duke unleashed his anger on her, questioning her about the evening's events, Olive replied that it was Enorbia who had called off the engagement. She explained that her handling of the situation prevented people from speculating about any wrongdoing on her part that might have driven Enorbia to end the engagement. She further emphasized that if her reputation were tarnished, the entire family would suffer. Chapter 5. Olive's articulate defense surprised the Duke, who wasn't expecting such a composed response. As he listened to her reasoning, his anger seemed to wane. He realized that the new Olive was not the same as before. She had grown and matured. While the situation was still tense, Olive's well-explained stance gave the Duke something to consider beyond his initial outrage. He thinks of the old Olive who used to retort right away and throw a tantrum when he scolded her. Overwhelmed by his astonishment, the Duke rose from his seat and approached her. He voiced his realization of the profound change within her, acknowledging the growth she had undergone. Jiang Mi, however, recognized that her narration had taken an unexpected turn, veering away from the original script. To regain her narrative footing, makes a pitiful face and plays herself as a victim, telling her father that there must be some mistake she had made before which resulted in this. This pulls a nerve in the Duke, and he shouts that there's nothing she could have done wrong, and it's all on Enorbia. Hearing this, she gets surprised because this is not the father from the novel she recognizes. The Duke further questions if she is really into the Crown Prince. In response, she admitted her awareness of her own intentions, revealing that her actions were not an excuse to escape from blind dates. With her confession made, she exited the room, leaving the Duke to grapple with his thoughts. He was subsequently presented a list of men for blind dates, but he declined to have a look on it and seemed rather content. Jiang Mi is still wondering that the novel and the world she is currently in has completely different personalities, and being for the first time here, she is not only confused about the characters, but about places as well. While finding her room, a nearby conversation caught her attention. Two women are talking to each other. One is on her knees, and the other one is scolding her. The cause of their frustration lay in a broken teapot, and they both know how much Olive will be enraged on it. But Olive unexpectedly intervenes, reaches out the girl, and offers her hand to help her get up, which is again quite strange for everyone about the Olive they know. Chapter 6. Olive swiftly intervened, extending a hand to help Jules off the ground. Observing the scene, Olive concluded that the teapot had seemingly shattered on its own, leading her to suspect that the blame was unjustly placed upon Jules by the other woman. Detecting a purposeful attempt to shift responsibility, Olive's analytical mind began to formulate a plan. She recognized an opportunity to impart a lesson. She asked her to clean the mess, and showed sympathy to Jules by asking her to put some ointment on her hand as it is scalded, an act of compassion that contrasted with the previous scolding. The other woman, though visibly irritated, found herself constrained to comply with Olive's directives. Reluctantly, she carried out the tasks assigned before finally departing the room, fulfilling Olive's wish for solitude as she sought rest. As she lies on her bed, she couldn't help but draw parallels between this fictional world and the struggles of her own reality. The weight of unfortunate circumstances and an uncertain fate seem to bind these two disparate realms together. She doesn't realize when she transfers from reality to her dreams. In the dream, Olive found herself enveloped in a terrible scenario. Accusations flew, blaming her for summoning a snake through dark magic and deliberately endangering Corellia, a charge she vehemently denied. However, her words fell on deaf ears. They labeled her a monster, decreeing her deserving a grim fate. Amidst the accusations, the figure of the Crown Prince emerged, with a sword poised to execute the final blow, while Olive's heart raced as she struggled to defend herself against the mounting accusations. As she gets up from the horrific dream, gasping, she hears someone calling her. Intrigued, she swung her legs over the side of the bed and approached the door, where a maid stood holding a letter. It was sent by Corellia, an invitation to a tea party. She thinks hard of this letter in the actual novel and realizes that the tea party she is invited in was a compensation for what happened yesterday. But that's not only what happened in the novel. Chapter 7. In the novel, Olive finds herself at the grand tea party, a pivotal social event that she had both anticipated and dreaded. Her emotions are mixed, as the familiarity of her dress mirroring Corellia's triggers a cascade of anxiety and embarrassment. The moment she spots the uncanny resemblance, an overwhelming impulse takes hold of her. A rush of turbulent emotions propels her to act in a way she wouldn't otherwise have. Seeing this, she goes out of control and splashes water on Corellia's entire dress. This ruins her entire dress beyond repair. Olive, once again, becomes the focal point of judgment and disapproval. As anticipated, she assumes the role of the antagonist in this scene, with Corellia cast as the pitiable victim. Sympathetic murmurs circle the room, casting Olive as the culprit in this ill-fated encounter. But Jiang Mi didn't want to create a scene, so in order to avoid that, he decides to not go to the party. But then she realizes that escaping from her fate isn't the right choice, but changing it is. Since she promised herself last night to live this life to its best, there was no possibility that she would avoid this chance. Resolute in her decision to seize the reins of her destiny, she confronts the pivotal choice before her. She had a plus point of knowing that both accidentally wore the same dress, so the first thing she decided to do was wear something else. A what? She decides to buy something absolutely new to make the probability go to zero. As Olive leaves her chamber, intent on executing her plan, an unexpected encounter awaits her. Raoul, characterized by a prominent scar, materializes before her. As he sees Olive's, he gets frustrated. When Olive inquires him about the scar, he makes an excuse that he tripped, but Olive doesn't believe. He thought of her mocking him. She tries to reassure Raoul, to bridge the gap between them with compassion. Yet her well-intentioned gesture is met with an abrupt action as he smacks her hand. Raoul's reaction to her touch was because he disliked it when she touched him. Rona's frustration at Raoul's behavior transmutes into action as she summons the guards to remove him. Olive's plea for moderation falls on deaf ears. This makes Raoul hate her even more, because he knew she was doing it on purpose. Realizing that, Olive now is more concerned since she has to try even harder to change her bad reputation. Chapter 8. Amid the gazes of the onlookers, Olive's command to release Raoul reverberates like a shockwave through the atmosphere. The surprise is etched on the faces of those present. Rona hesitates in the face of Olive's directness. The sternness in Olive's tone and the unwavering determination in her eyes curb any further intervention from Rona, and hence she directs the guard to leave him instantly. Once the guards withdraw and Raoul is left standing before her, Olive talks to him in a gentler tone. She orders him to have a leave for today. She thinks that he should rest for a while. When she is offered to get a new knight, she declines and says that she only wants him. This unanticipated gesture catches Raoul off guard, threading the air with an unfamiliar note of compassion. Yet he still thinks ill of her, as it could be a new conspiracy of Olive to make fun of him. The seeds of doubt, long nurtured by his perception of her, continued to cast a shadow over any glimmers of change. As Olive reaches the commercial district, she gets super excited to discover it. For that, she asks the carriage to be parked along the roadside and chooses to go by foot. She gets so involved in the beauty of the new world she is living in. The kaleidoscope of colors, sounds, and scents envelops her, stimulating an insatiable desire to acquire every piece of beauty that catches her eye. While she is on her shopping spree, someone bumps into her. In the blink of an eye, she runs away. She realizes that the person has stolen her purse containing all her money. The absence of a knight or guard who could give chase leaves Olive with no alternative but to rely on her own instincts, so she ran behind him on her own, fueled with the emotions of anger. While she runs behind him, she keeps shouting to get some help in catching him. The sheer intensity of the moment leads her to collide with another individual, and the apple in that person's hand slips. She could not dodge it, so she impulsively caught it. "Please wait for a while," someone says, seemingly appearing out of thin air, and leaving her on the edge of curiosity. Chapter 9. As the thief's fleeting steps are abruptly halted by a swift interjection, Olive witnesses the dramatic scene. The intervention of a mysterious man in the midst of this incident snatches victory from the jaws of theft. He reclaims Olive's purse back. She inquires if he is okay. He assures her and gives her purse back to her. She pays her gratitude to him while he tries to be as humble as possible. In the course of this interaction, the thief regains his footing, fueling the scene with a new surge of tension. An unexpected threat materializes in the form of a gleaming knife. The man dodges him real quickly and smacks him on the floor. As the thief lies defeated, the man turns his attention to Olive, whose countenance reflects a mixture of astonishment and shock. Realizing the impact of his actions, he apologizes for scaring her. Olive tells him that she is fine, as she regains her senses. She was so busy thinking how this novel world is so unpredictable, which it shouldn't be since she has read the novel more than one time. Moreover, she was stunned that a random person was this kind to help her, and beautiful and skilled as well. She asks him to excuse her for a bit. Then she extends an apology to the person she initially collided with, returning the apples she inadvertently disrupted. Her remorse is articulated through a gesture. Offering money to purchase the basket of apples, gratitude spills forth as she gifts the basket to the enigmatic man, a token of her appreciation. Yet Olive's nature strives for more meaningful expressions. Determined to reciprocate the man's actions, she offers him to buy a cake from the nearby shop. When they buy one, she excuses herself, telling that there is somewhere she has to go, else she would have treated him with a proper meal instead. Chapter 10. Before their departure, with a voice laden with genuine interest, the man inquires whether she might consider meeting him again. Olive's mind spins momentarily as the proposition hangs in the air. The allure of his charisma and the intrigue he carries spark a response within her. There is no chance she would turn down such a handsome guy, so she replies to him with a maybe. They part their ways, and Jiang Mi fantasizes it as a textbook-perfect encounter. As Olive becomes out of sight, the man pulls off his act and reaches some less crowded place in a corner. As someone approaches him, he starts speaking that Olive is not rude and arrogant, asserting that beneath the layers of arrogance lies a different truth. The other man, hearing that, imparts a straightforward directive, asking him to focus on his job only. He was assigned with the duty of finding out the relation between her and the Crown Prince. He understands the order, throws the gifts given by Olive in a dustbin, and walks away. Meanwhile, Olive's determination yields success as she acquires the outfit that will potentially liberate her from everyone else. She chooses the most ordinary suit and is certain that no one in the party would wear such a simple suit. When she reaches back her home, she finds a similar scenario as last night. The lady, Rona, is scolding the girl again. In fact, this time the argument escalates to physical violence. Rona slapped her and she ended up on the ground. Olive's voice slices through the tension, her demand for an explanation tempered by an authoritative tone. Rona informs her that she was stealing bread, and if she is not taught a lesson, she will attempt to steal Miss Vyas's jewelry next time. Olive's intervention shifts the momentum, a stern command for Rona to cease her actions. The young girl's vulnerability tugs at Olive's heartstrings, igniting her curiosity about the motivations behind the theft. A swift and compassionate gesture follows as Olive reaches out, not for retribution, but for connection. She stretches her arm, which the girl thinks is to slap her. But instead, with a gentle touch, she lifts the girl's chin, offering a platform for her to share her story. The girl, sobbing, tells her that his brother is seriously ill and all the money she had was spent in buying the medicines for him. Now they can't afford a meal, so she could not think of anything but to steal the leftovers. Olive hears her sympathetically and asks her if her brother also works here. As a response, she is informed that he is very young to work here. She extends her generosity, offering her a cake, a symbolic token of compassion, and asks her to call his brother here and share it with him. Moreover, she advises her that if there is any problem that she faces in the future, she should come to her to discuss it and not to ever steal again. She is also disappointed by the authority that doesn't check and balance these matters. The girl makes the promise, being deeply moved, and bows her with a thank you. However, Rona's reservations echo a different perspective. She questions Olive's leniency, underscoring the potential cons of allowing this transgression to pass without any proper act of punishment. Chapter 11. Seeking to address Rona's aggressiveness and put her in her place, Olive capitalizes on her understanding of the dynamics within the household. Rona's tendency to dominate and eliminate those she disapproves of is not lost on Olive, who tactfully employs her knowledge. Hence, she warns her that if something like this ever happens again, that will be intolerable. Rona gets afraid and nods, acknowledging. Olive knows that she can't replace her for now, but she can at least warn her. She sighs as she recognizes her limitations in the present, as it wasn't possible to train her servants, but Olive remains committed to eventually instilling change within her household. Later, as the scene shifts, Olive's demeanor is strikingly different from her earlier anticipatory excitement. We see Olive arriving at the tea party in her ordinary dress, looking completely uninterested in the party. The sequence of events begins with her encountering Reynold, the Crown Prince himself. She was not expecting him here this early since he is, of course, the Crown Prince. Reynold catches her sight on him, glares at her, and turns away. Olive finds it rude. In a curious twist, the man who extended his assistance to her during the earlier incident is also present at the gathering. Her perceptive gaze measures him against the Crown Prince, favoring him for his gentler demeanor. As she navigates the party, her path intersects with a trio of women, consisting of Corellia. They start talking about how Corellia is obsessed with the Crown Prince and keep looking at him. This will flatter him. She tries to be sarcastic by mentioning that at least she is not as bold as someone to confess to him in public. The ladies beside her agree and say that others should at least see themselves in the mirror first before making such a claim. Then they start directing their taunts to Olive by saying that no one deserves the Crown Prince except Corellia, especially Olive. Olive doesn't stay behind. She already had a reply thought of. She questions the ladies if the Crown Prince came to her in the night secretly and whispered to her this all rubbish. Reynold, analyzing the scenario, remains calm and continues sipping his tea because he already saw this coming. The lady irritatingly replies to Olive's question that there is no need to be told by the Crown Prince anything. It was pretty obvious that Olive is rude and aggressive, and the Crown Prince will never fall for her. This piques Olive's interest, and she thought of doing something. With audacious resolve, she invites those around her to participate in a collective assessment. By urging them to raise their hands if they believe Corellia and Reynold make a compatible pair, she unveils the underlying skepticism. The audience's reluctance to engage in the demonstration speaks volumes. As people divert their gaze or flee the scene, Olive's impromptu survey unveils the difference between appearances and underlying beliefs. Chapter 12. The ladies decide Corellia, red-faced and embarrassed, hastily raise their hands in support of Corellia, seeking refuge in their loyalty. However, their hasty response is overshadowed by the majority's lack of participation. They quickly realize that there wasn't any need to follow her orders at all. However, Olive cleverly turns the tables and addresses the Crown Prince, telling him that there are people in the party who like to make decisions on your behalf. This was enough to make him take his anger out. He shouts at the ladies to stop and suggests they either learn basic manners or else better stay at home. Corellia's expectations of Olive's reaction were betrayed by the actual outcome. The absence of the dramatic confrontation she had envisaged leaves her disarmed. Instead, the lady's antics become the center of attention, overshadowing her intentions. Realizing the error in her calculations, she seizes the opportunity to display her diplomacy. Corellia approaches Reynold, gracefully apologizing on behalf of the troublesome trio. Her charm is equally directed towards Olive, as she pulls her close and extends an apology for the uncalled-for commotion. Olive's response remains cool and composed, brushing off the incident with indifference, and replies that it didn't matter since she was not offended by them. Later, Corellia reveals that she invited everyone here for a reason. It was that she hired a new pastry chef, and the desserts present at the party were made by the new chef. This clicks something in Olive's mind. She realizes that according to the novel, in the tea party, someone from the guests of Corellia eats a peanut pastry unknowingly and dies because she is allergic to it. As she gets into shock, Corellia rushes to help her and calls the ambulance. This impresses the Crown Prince, and he began to like her because of her composure in the phase 3 of emergency. In order to stop that from happening, Jiang Mi gets indulged into making a plan. Since it was not a right time for the main female lead to have her charm, she thought of ways to avoid this happening. It was because in this way she would become devoid of her shield in the form of the Crown Prince. Hence, armed with determination, Jiang Mi embarks on a mission to locate the girl who is destined to fall victim to the allergy. Chapter 13. Olive tries hard to remember the way she looks. Delicate and thin, well, everybody there looked the same. Freckles on her face stand out in her memory, yet the absence of a name hampers her ability to locate her amidst the crowd. Just as her frustration begins to mount, a voice nearby pierces the air, carrying the elusive name to her ears like a long-lost melody. Tatiana. The name resonates within her, finally providing a thread of connection to the girl who is unknowingly walking towards her fate. The voice was coming from the table, and her friend was asking her to taste the pastry already. Olive rushes towards her and grabs her hand just before she could take the bite. The girl standing finds it against manners and declares Olive to be ill-mannered, and that the Duke didn't teach her etiquettes at all. Realizing that she had been too harsh in this impulsive behavior, she quickly came up with a polite excuse. "I want to exchange my pastry with hers." It seemed very odd when people heard that because the words didn't match her behavior, while Corellia, sensing the tension, offers Olive a substitute pastry of similar make. Yet Olive declines, instead leaning in to whisper something into Tatiana's ear. With covert precision, the exchange takes place, a gesture laden with unspoken significance. Her friend inquired what Olive whispered. She responded that she told her there were peanuts in the pastry. Her friend couldn't get the reason through her mind that just because she wanted to have a peanut pastry, she grabbed your hand and stopped you harshly. In the midst of the unfolding drama, the Crown Prince makes his entrance. His commanding presence exudes authority as he calls for an end to the escalating confrontation. Alongside him stands the man who had helped Olive earlier, his observant gaze capturing Reynold's every move. The Crown Prince's attention narrows on the stranger's intentions, prompting him to question the man's interest. The man avoids the direct inquiry with a playful deflection, masking it with curiosity about the cake that caused the commotion and how good the cake would taste if it caused such a scene. The reply of the Crown Prince was that a noble lady should not be causing a commotion. This surprised the man as he thought since the Crown Prince never looked at the ladies, he wouldn't be much aware of the situation and wouldn't pass a comment. But this interaction brought him to the conclusion that Olive is, indeed, somewhat special to him. However, he didn't notice any private acquaintances between the two, so he thought of inquiring with them a little bit more to make a final conclusion. Later, we see Olive wandering and wondering. She tried her best to change her image, but it all went vain amidst her wandering thoughts. Tatiana approaches Olive with an inquiry that throws her off guard. Tatiana's curiosity revolves around Olive's uncanny knowledge of her peanut allergy, a fact even her close friends have failed to grasp. Caught in a web of uncertainty, Olive stands perplexed, unable to unveil the source of her insight without revealing her knowledge of the novel's plot. Chapter 14. As Reynold prepares to depart, Corellia seizes a last-minute opportunity to engage him in conversation. With a hint of contrition, she extends an apology, acknowledging the persistent whispers that paint them as a perfect match. Reynold, initially puzzled by her apology, listens as Corellia elaborates on the assumptions that have been circulating about their supposed compatibility. However, Reynold's attention is quickly diverted as he spots Olive engrossed in conversation with Titania. This timely distraction prevents Corellia from delving deeper into the topic, as Reynold's gaze remains fixed on the unfolding dialogue. Reynold's interest in Olive's interaction with Titania intensifies as he begins to eavesdrop on their conversation. Titania queries Olive about her knowledge of the peanut allergy, to which Olive nonchalantly responds that she was unaware of it. Her admission is tinged with honesty and a confession of her desire for peanut pastries. Titania is both astounded and grateful, expressing her thanks for Olive's timely intervention that saved her life. Reynold doubted this to be just an incident. Corellia realizes that Reynold's attention is diverted by the conversation between the two, completely ignoring her, so she poses another question, asking about the pastries and their taste. He replies that they were satisfactory and leaves. This frustrates Corellia, and she blames it on Olive. In the next scene, we see Olive sitting with her father on the dinner table of her house, engaging in a lively conversation. Firstly, her father asked her about the party. She said that it was quite fun and the pastries were really good as well. However, she thought in contrast to what she said, she was tired and sleepy, got irritated by the gossip and constant mocking of the side characters, and didn't like the pastries at all. She claimed that she can make it better than that. The conversation then takes a decisive turn as her father introduces the topic of Reynold. His tone carries an air of seriousness as he voices his reservations about Olive's potential relationship with the Crown Prince. He discloses his apprehension, emphasizing his concern for her well-being and happiness. Olive objected by reminding him that he always used to set her up with rich and noble men, and this would have been a great advantage if she became the Crown Princess. The concerned father finally revealed that he preferred such a man because his influence will analyze how happy life he will be able to provide you. He further added that the reason to objectify his daughter being married to the Crown Prince is that he will lead her to a complicated and anxious life. Olive demanded for some more explanation. The Duke mentioned the border conflict and said that the Highness and the Crown Prince will be traveling soon to resolve it. They will be suppressing the enemy, which is indeed a dangerous task. Since the Crown Prince is in charge of the whole nation, such events would occur off and on, making his daughter lead her life cautiously and anxiously. He made her rethink the pros and cons and then reconsider becoming his partner. After that, he leaves the table excusing himself. Olive is left there with the fact that this concerned father was never mentioned in the novel. She realized that he was a very loving father, but he hid it under his cold expressions. What else she realizes is the border conflict part, which is already here. According to the novel, Reynold will suffer a lot in it. Chapter 15. Olive's recollections of the novel's intricate web of alliances and betrayals echo in her mind, and a daring idea takes root. In the novel, it was mentioned that the supporting male character, appointed with Reynold, actually turns out to be a spy and leaks information to the enemy. This results in great loss to Reynold. Not only that, he gets injured and is forced to take away some of his military, leading to distortion of his reputation. This all results in their defeat. She contemplates the ways in which she might assist Reynold, using her knowledge to avert all of this. In this way, she can save him from the misfortune and can use her sometime as a token of returning the favor. Hence, once again, she embarks on another mission. Olive's strategy for assistance unfolds in stages, with the first step involving a letter to Reynold. Recognizing the inherent risks in communication, she chooses to invite him to her home. Her aim is to ensure the utmost privacy, safeguarding their exchange from prying eyes. However, when Reynold receives the invitation letter, he initially assumes it's from Olive's father. Learning that it's actually from Olive herself, he promptly declines the invitation, wary of becoming entangled in any further interactions. Undeterred, Olive's determination remains steadfast. On the second day, she endeavors to visit Reynold in person. Her carriage crosses paths with him on his horse, and she enthusiastically waves in an attempt to initiate a conversation. However, he deftly avoids her gaze and quickly distances himself, leaving her attempts at engagement fruitless once more. Day 3 heralds a new tactic for Olive. She conceives the idea of gifting Reynold a present, a seemingly innocuous gesture designed to intrigue him. Yet in the box lies a paper bearing a cryptic message. There's a spy. This coded hint aims to pique his curiosity, nudging him towards the information she holds. As she approaches him with the present in hand, he dismisses it without a second glance, again eluding her efforts. The strain of disappointments weighs heavily on Olive's spirit, inciting a mix of frustration and anger. Her intentions to offer aid with the purest of motives are thwarted by the lingering shadow of her character's past disposition. In an ironic twist, the very personality she strives to distance herself from continues to color her actions and impede her efforts. Not only that, people started gossiping about her that her present was rejected by the Crown Prince, and some rumors were spread that she wants to sleep with Reynold, but he denied. As Olive contemplates her next move, a knock on her door shifts her focus. She receives word that her father wishes to meet her in his study room. The unexpected summons draws her attention, and a surge of curiosity courses through her. Chapter 16. Upon entering the study room, Olive is met with her father's presence, a sense of gravity lingering in the air. He gestures for her to take a seat, indicating that a significant discussion is about to take place. The room's focal point is a towering stack of papers, a list of potential suitors curated by her father for her perusal. Olive's curiosity leads her to inquire about the paper's contents, and her father reveals that these are the names of men he hopes she will consider marrying. He further voices his desire for her to move past her affections for the Crown Prince, urging her to explore other options. As Olive gazes upon the extensive list of names, a realization dawns upon her. The reason Olive in the novel gets mad at the end. The names were long enough that if they were to stand in a line, it would completely fill a block or two. Moreover, she realizes that her father might have heard about the rumors as well. She gently declines, but her father, however, remains resolute in his perspective. He believes that someone who consistently rejects and then flaunts affection isn't worthy of her genuine feelings. He assures her of his unwavering support, emphasizing her standing as a Vyas and his commitment to her well-being. A flush of embarrassment colors Olive's cheeks as the intimate conversation unfolds. Yet a seed of a new idea takes root in her mind. She realizes that her father could potentially be her bridge to Reynold. Gathering her courage, Olive outlines a different motivation for her interactions with the Crown Prince. She crafts an explanation that focuses on assisting Reynold with border strategies, using her strategic insights to support him. To substantiate her claim, she elaborates on the detailed strategy she has devised. Her father, listening intently, queries how she came up with all this and that she was never taught a strategy before. She realizes that once again she stepped out of character. Chess. She says that she learnt it while playing chess. Her father is very impressed by her and claims to be proud as the heir of Vyas family should have such a character. He perceives her transformation with genuine appreciation, acknowledging the changes that have taken place within her. He affirms his support and promises to convey her strategy to the Crown Prince. Days later, Olive finds herself holding an invitation from the palace. With newfound confidence, she believes that the Crown Prince could not possibly decline after learning of her strategic contributions. However, she didn't know that this interaction would reveal many things to her. Chapter 17. As the anticipated moment arrives, the Crown Prince makes his appearance, prompting an inquiry that catches Olive off guard. Reynold questions whether she's angry with him, a puzzling sentiment for her to process. Olive responds honestly, assuring him that she bears no resentment towards him for the rumors that have circulated. She clarifies that she won't impose her desires on him if he has no interest in meeting her. Reynold's surprise at her level-headed response is evident as he struggles to reconcile this new aspect of her character with his preconceived notions. Their conversation takes a substantive turn as Reynold reveals that he received a letter from her father containing her ideas for the border conflict. However, his response is far from what Olive hoped for. He issues a stark warning, placing the fate of the entire Vyas family squarely on her shoulders. It's a clear indicator of his lack of trust in her plans, casting a shadow of doubt over their potential collaboration. Olive asserts that her plans coincide with his objectives. She asserts that in the event of a defeat, he alone will shoulder the blame, sparing her family from the fallout. He agrees that she is right. However, in reality, Olive actually copies the entire plan she read in the novel and explains it to her father to impress him. With a proposition that she has fought so hard to present, Olive urges Reynold to reconsider his strategy. Her arguments revolve around the notion that a plan devised by someone of her status could easily be anticipated by their enemies. She also emphasizes the importance of trust, encouraging him to surround himself with loyal men to prevent infiltration by spies. The Crown Prince's admiration for Olive's political acumen grows as he witnesses her deep understanding of the intricate web of politics and strategy. Moreover, he is convinced that her father didn't make an excuse, but she actually had some strategies prepared by herself. The seriousness of their discussion is momentarily interrupted by the arrival of the chef, who announces the arrival of desserts. Olive detects the unmistakable scent of peanuts. They both settle down while Reynold thinks that he asked his chefs to make a dessert of peanuts but wasn't expecting all of them to be made of it. Chapter 18. The taste of the peanut pastry delights Olive's palate, surpassing even the desserts at Carelia's party. Her enjoyment is so palpable that Reynold observes her expression, misconstruing her satisfaction as a profound fondness for peanuts. This misunderstanding deepens as they resume their conversation, delving into the intricacies of her proposed strategies. While engrossed in their exchange, a bystander catches sight of them, the man who had come to Olive's aid earlier. Intrigued by the scene before him, the man can't suppress his curiosity. He approaches a knight, accompanying him, and inquires about the nature of the relationship between Olive and Reynold. The knight provides a straightforward response, revealing that they are engrossed in discussions related to the border conflict strategy. The man is taken aback by this revelation, realizing that Olive is far more multidimensional and intriguing than he had initially believed. Her strategic prowess adds a layer of complexity to her character that he hadn't anticipated. As the meeting ends successfully, Olive returns home and encounters Jewel's brother. Her kindness extends to offering Jewel a position as her personal maid, an offer that Jewel readily accepts. Olive finds solace in her accomplishment, having not only successfully conveyed her strategy to Reynold but also forged a connection that secures Jewel's loyalty. The prospect of assistance and companionship in her mission is heartening. However, the passage of time uncovers an unexpected twist in their new association. Olive soon realizes that Jewel's admiration for her and Reynold has escalated to fandom, leading her to create situations that seem to push the two together. Rumors, once a thorn in Olive's side, have now become a tool that Jewel wields with unanticipated enthusiasm. Chapter 19. The pivotal day finally arrives when Reynold is set to embark on his journey to address the border conflict. The atmosphere outside his residence is charged with anticipation as a crowd gathers to bid him farewell. Among the onlookers stands Jewel, steadfast by Olive's side. It's a moment fraught with complexity for Olive as her dual role, that of her character and her personal feelings, intersects in a tangible way. The crowd's enthusiasm is palpable as they cheer for Reynold, expressing their support through various gifts. But Reynold surprises everyone by declining these offerings, from cookies and socks to even Carelia's unique insect repellent. Olive keenly observes this departure from the novel's narrative, realizing that her efforts at the tea party have indeed influenced Reynold's choices. The divergence from the expected path stirs a mix of emotions within Olive, confirming the impact of her actions on the story's trajectory. Amidst the crowd, the ladies from the tea party approach Olive and begin to remind her that if he hasn't accepted Carelia's gift, there is no chance he would accept hers. Olive, however, remains resolute and confronts them, invoking Reynold's directive to silence their chatter. As the tension builds, Jewel seizes the moment, pushing Olive towards Reynold, urging her to present a gift to capture his attention. Caught off guard, Olive hastily produces a handkerchief and extends it to Reynold. The crowd, including the ladies, starts mocking her for offering what they consider a trivial gift. Corellia, however, interjects with a semblance of sympathy, suggesting that what Reynold truly needs is their unwavering belief in his victory. The dynamics have shifted, confounding Olive with unexpected twists that challenge her expectations. Approaching her with purpose, Reynold takes her hand and plants a gentle kiss upon it. The act is unexpected, yet it carries a message of its own. As he whispers into her ear, he reveals his awareness of her presence in the crowd and the gesture that he expects from her upon his triumphant return from the battle. Chapter 20. The scene in which Reynold kissed Olive's hand left the audience astir with mixed emotions: ridicule, disgust, and an undercurrent of jealousy. As baffled as the surrounding ladies, Olive finds herself caught off guard by Reynold's unexpected gesture. She grapples with the aftermath of his action, pondering its implications and wondering why he would subject her to the envious glares and malicious whispers of those around her. The promise he whispered lingers like a puzzle piece, its significance yet to be deciphered. 8 days passed, and life remains entangled in thoughts of Reynold's pledge as the passage of 8 days leaves her in suspense. Nearby, Jewel and her younger brother engage in playful activities, creating a lively atmosphere. Jewel, considerate of Olive's focus, asks her brother to lower his voice so as not to disturb her. Yet Olive's attention is drawn to the boy's interest in sword fighting, which becomes apparent through his fascination with the activity. Recognizing this, Olive seizes the opportunity to nurture his interest. She proposes the idea of learning sword fighting, offering her knowledge of the perfect candidate for the task. To her, Raoul seems the ideal choice to instruct him. Eagerly, she summons Raoul and asks for his assistance in teaching Jewel's brother. However, the situation takes an unexpected turn as Raoul, seemingly misunderstanding the situation, becomes hesitant and declines her request. Concerned, he excuses himself and pulls Olive aside to converse in private. He inquires whether Jewel's brother is nothing more than a new plaything to her. Perplexed, Olive struggles to grasp Raoul's point, prompting him to clarify. He reveals that if Jewel's brother becomes his apprentice, he will inevitably become a target for bullying and mockery by certain individuals. The cryptic phrase, "those people," doesn't fit into Olive's understanding, leading to further confusion. Hence, Raoul decides to remind her. He pulls his sword in aggression, but with a grin on his face. Chapter 21. As Raoul grips his sword, a surge of fear courses through Olive. She believes he might be driven to the point of stabbing her due to the uncomfortable topic she brought up. Her anxiety spikes until Raoul unexpectedly hurls his sword to the ground. The resounding clatter of the weapon hitting the floor reverberates in the air. It's a gesture that unsettles her even further. She's struck by the significance of a knight discarding his sword so casually, as it's a prized possession and a symbol of his duty. Raoul breaks the silence with a recounting of their shared history. He delves into the tale of how he became her knight, the painful journey of growing to despise her, and the reasons underlying his sentiments. He divulges that his family was devastated a few years prior, and in that time of vulnerability, Olive's demand for him to be her knight was superficial, based solely on his good looks. What followed was a period of degradation and humiliation. Olive would subject him to her whims, dressing him as a girl when in a good mood and forcing him to confront challenges, like fighting a hunting dog when she was in a bad mood, humiliating him in front of people. The pain and suffering he endured at her hands were crushing, and her sadistic enjoyment of his torment deeply affected him. His role as her knight wasn't about safeguarding her family or being a protector. It was about saving himself from her manipulative caprices. The recollection of these painful memories fuels Raoul's frustration, and the thought of her seeking another victim as a form of entertainment triggers a final breaking point. He asserts his refusal to assist her in any endeavor again and leaves her presence abruptly, leaving her stunned and grasping for words to retain him. Olive, a whirlwind of confusion, attempts to halt Raoul but is met with his retreating form. She lacks the means to explain her sudden shift in behavior, as she is playing the role of Jiang Mi, who is remarkably different from the previous Olive. Yet the realization dawns on her. In the novel's narrative, Raoul meets an untimely and tragic end. His weapon shatters during a confrontation, sealing his grim fate. Determined to alter his destiny, Olive embarks on a new mission, the mission to save Raoul. In order to do so, she recognizes the urgency of procuring a new sword for him. She requests her leave from Jewel and Thea's, explaining her need to carry out a task. Jewel offers to accompany her, but she politely declines the company. Subsequently, Olive finds herself wandering the bustling commercial street in search of a store that specializes in selling swords. Among the wide variety of shops, one captures her attention with its diverse collection of weaponry. However, faced with the range of choices, Olive is overwhelmed, feeling as men must when selecting a lipstick shade. The shopkeeper's call draws her inside, where an even more extensive array awaits. She candidly expresses her intention to purchase the most expensive sword, guided by the belief that higher cost equates to superior quality. Chapter 22. The shopkeeper, sensing Olive's lack of knowledge about swords, sees an opportunity to exploit her and maximize his profits. He decides to manipulate her into purchasing overpriced items. To achieve this, he presents her with antique and weathered swords, claiming that they are the most expensive ones available. However, Olive remains skeptical. She questions why these swords appear used and aged. The shopkeeper, quick on his feet, spins a lie about these swords being divine artifacts possessing special powers bestowed upon their owner. Just as the shopkeeper attempts to deceive Olive further, the man who had helped her before passes by the shop. Observing the situation, he recognizes that Olive is on the brink of being scammed. Concerned for her well-being, he rushes in with the intention of intervening and gaining her trust. However, before he can make his move, he overhears Olive accusing the shopkeeper of scamming her. The shopkeeper realizes that Olive may have uncovered his scheme. Olive asserts that true divine swords are not typically found in small shops like his, and that his tactic won't work on her. Spotting the man behind her, she seizes his hand and promptly exits the shop, warning him to avoid making a purchase there due to their dishonest practices. The man is taken aback by Olive's quick wit and cleverness. In reality, Olive is keenly aware that in the novel, the character she is portraying, Olive, had only come across one divine sword and knew who owned it. This knowledge enhances her ability to see through the shopkeeper's tactics. As she contemplates the situation, the man interrupts her thoughts, suggesting that they hang out together. Unable to resist the charm of such a handsome companion and recognizing the value of having someone knowledgeable about swords by her side, she agrees to his proposal. The man also mentions the delicious cake they had previously discussed, which reminds Olive of Thea's praising the same cake. Just as she begins to ponder this connection, something captures her attention abruptly. She realizes that it is. Chapter 23. The sight of a sword on display abruptly caught Olive's attention. It was the very same sword she remembered from the novel, the one with which the character she was portraying, Olive, met her tragic end. This sword was owned by Reynold, and it was the instrument of her demise, a chilling and horrifying memory. The wave of recognition left, Olive feeling dizzy, and a sense of fear washed over her. The man she was with noticed her distress and asked if she was all right, offering to take her home if she was feeling unwell. Summoning her courage, Olive decided to confront the sword that held such a dark significance in her narrative. Her plan was to prevent Reynold from owning it, thus altering the course of fate. She approached the seller with determination, hoping that by purchasing the sword herself, she could change her destiny. She inquired about the sword's value, only to be met with resistance. The seller informed her that the sword chose its owner, not the other way around. But Olive was resolute in her mission. To secure the sword, she offered the seller a significant sum of money, believing that this bribe would be enough to convince him to sell it to her. The seller, enticed by the substantial amount, agreed to the deal. Despite his attempts to warn her against her decision, Olive disregarded his advice. The seller, recognizing her determination and wanting to capitalize on the opportunity, expedited the sale. During their conversation with the man, Olive realizes that he already knew her name, having heard it during the party hosted by Corellia. Curious, she formally introduced herself, and the man revealed his name to be Deseth Hurt. Chapter 24. Hearing the name Hurt Deseth, Olive is taken aback. She remembers that this name was associated with the main villain in the story. As she reflects on Hurt Deseth's history, she recalls that he was known as the master of facial expression management, possessing a warm appearance that belied his heartless nature. In the history of the Orland Empire, the emperor had 3 children. The Crown Prince Reynold was the son of the late queen. The second child was Princess Gwen, born to the current queen. Lastly, there was Deseth Hurt, the son of the late queen's maid. Rumors circulated that His Highness made a mistake while drunk, leading to Deseth's birth. In a time when lineage was of utmost importance, Deseth was treated as an unacknowledged and unrespected illegitimate child. The emperor favored Reynold, while Deseth felt overlooked and taken for granted. Surprisingly, Reynold treated him with kindness and care, fostering a bond between the two. Yet beneath Deseth's facade of affection, a deep-seated hatred for Reynold simmered. He aimed to surpass the crown prince but struggled with his studies, eventually turning into a slow learner. But later he becomes a sharp sword. This path led to Reynold's downfall, resulting in defeat and death. Recalling this history, Olive shivers at the chilling realization of Deseth's true nature and his pivotal role in the events of the story. Later in her room with her maid Jewel, Olive watches as Jewel attempts to lift the heavy sword. Jewel comments on the sword's rusty and aged appearance, even after wiping it. Olive explains that the sword is divine and will transform once summoned by its true master. She also mentions that the sword's aged appearance reflects its loss of a master, likening it to an aging dragon. Inwardly, Olive thinks that the sword must have been rather naive to see something worthy in the crown prince to be summoned. As Jewel comprehends the nature of the sword's transformation, Olive instructs her to prepare her clothes for an outing the following day. Chapter 25. In the midst of battle, Reynold's thoughts turn to the recent turn of events. With the spy now captured due to Olive's clever suggestions, he reflects on how her ideas played a crucial role in this success. He realizes that if he hadn't abandoned his original plan and instead followed Olive's advice, the outcome might not have been as favorable. Seeking to extract vital information, Reynold interrogates the spy about his allegiance. However, the spy's fear overwhelms him, rendering him incapable of speaking. Determined to uncover the truth swiftly, Reynold orders the guard to escort the spy away for a thorough investigation. He instructs them to apply torture to extract the necessary details, but to ensure that the spy remains. As Olive embarks on another journey with Raoul, they remain in silence throughout the trip. When they finally reach their destination at Dragonclaw, Olive finds herself unimpressed, expecting a more captivating sight. Undeterred, she presses forward, with Raoul following her lead. As they move on, Olive suggests hiking, prompting a sudden memory to flood Raoul's mind. In that memory, he recalls a time when Olive treated him like a dog, demanding that he showcase his sword-fighting skills by facing off against her hunting dog. Bravely, he battled the dog and accidentally ended up killing it. However, instead of praise, Olive became angry and scolded him for his actions. In retribution, she turned him into her dog as a punishment. The memory serves as a stark reminder of the humiliation and mistreatment he endured at her hands. This journey to Dragonclaw becomes symbolic for Raoul, a chance to break free from the emotional torment he associates with Olive. He sees an opportunity to end her life and escape the clutches of her manipulation and cruelty. The idea forms in his mind to stage her death as an attack by a monster, effectively ridding himself of the torment he has endured since that humiliating incident. Chapter 26. Raoul reacts swiftly, drawing his sword and swinging it towards the air in Olive's direction. Unaware of his actions as she searches for an escape route, Olive doesn't realize what's happening until she feels the tip of the sword brushing against her hair, causing a few locks to be severed. Confused and shocked, she questions Raoul's actions, but her answer becomes clear as her gaze shifts downward to where a dead snake lies on the ground. With Raoul's swift intervention, Olive narrowly avoids a snake falling onto her head. He expertly slices the snake in midair, preventing it from harming her. Olive expresses her gratitude for his quick action, but Raoul simply sees it as his duty as her knight, emphasizing that he would have taken down 2 threats had he not been restrained by his loyalty. He further plans in his mind that he will indeed one day kill her as soon as his family gains their reputation back and he leaves his knightship. As the danger subsides, Olive must decide on her next course of action. She consults Raoul, who admits he's uncertain about the best path to take. Evaluating the pros and cons, Olive decides that a less crowded path would likely lead to the presence of dragons. Her primary goal in visiting the Dragonclaw was to find a dragon, as she needs a specific gem from them to awaken the sword. Together, Olive and Raoul continue their search, spending half the day in pursuit of their mission. However, their efforts yield no results, leaving Olive fatigued and disheartened. Seeking respite, she suggests taking a break, but Raoul reminds her of her initial determination. Encouraged by his words, Olive reconsiders her decision and presses forward, realizing the urgency of obtaining the gem before her fate aligns with the novel's narrative. As darkness was about to spread, Olive formulates a plan. She decides to bait the dragons with food and set up a trap. Raoul assists her in preparing the trap, though he's uncertain if it will work. Olive remains optimistic, explaining that dragons would likely be seeking food as darkness descends. She's convinced that the trap will yield results and assigns Raoul the task of observing the trap, ready to catch a dragon if it falls into the snare. Chapter 27. While waiting for success in Olive's mission, a dragon slowly approaches the baited food. As the dragon contemplates the offering, Olive spots the creature and immediately orders Raoul to capture it. Bursting out of the bushes, Raoul lunges at the dragon, his sword slicing through the air and defeating the creature. To everyone's surprise, the dragon suddenly vomits up a gem. Olive can't contain her excitement as she sees the gem gleaming on the ground, the dragon defeated and unconscious. She showers Raoul with compliments, proclaiming him to be the strongest knight of the Empire. However, Raoul remains relatively unmoved by her praise. He understands that Olive is using him for her own goals and motivations. When Olive raises her hand for a high five, she quickly withdraws it, remembering that Raoul doesn't like physical contact. This display of consideration and apology is strange coming from the Olive who used to torment Raoul. With the gem in her possession, Olive is now certain that she can become the rightful owner of the sword and summon its power. As they set off on their journey back, Olive suddenly hears rustling approaching her. Her heart races as she turns, only to find herself caught by the grasp of Devil's Eye. Raoul swiftly moves to untangle her from the branches, but ends up getting entwined himself. He informs her that escaping the grasp of these vines is a challenge, and they need to run away. However, Olive insists on helping Raoul rather than abandoning him. She calls out to him, expressing her concern and urging him not to be left in that condition. This genuine display of empathy catches Raoul off guard. He's surprised by Olive's shift in behavior and her sincere worry for his well-being. Chapter 28. As they both find themselves entangled in the troublesome grip of the Devil's Eye, Olive's ears catch the sound of a branch clanking. Her attention is drawn to someone approaching them. It's another handsome man who begins to applaud as they both become aware of his presence. He remarks on the beautiful sight before him, the compassion of a master for her servant. This ignites a spark of fury within Olive, prompting her to demand his identity. He smirks and retorts that they should return the stolen gem, accusing them of thievery. Olive quickly refuses, explaining that she obtained the gem by defeating the dragon, not by theft. However, the man calmly informs her that he is the owner of this place, the Dragon Claw, and all the dragons and gems within it belong to him. He summons the dragon they defeated, and it emerges from the ground. Olive realizes that they inadvertently vanquished the man's pet. She pleads with him, asking for Raoul's release, but her plea falls on deaf ears. In an attempt to sway him, Olive tries to bribe him with the promise of riches, revealing her status as the daughter of the Vyas family, the sole heirs to great wealth. However, once again, the man remains unmoved, expressing disinterest in material possessions. He reiterates his demand for the return of the gem. Faced with this impasse, Olive inquires about the condition under which he would release Raoul from this dangerous situation. To her astonishment, he makes a bold proposition. He'll release Raoul if she agrees to become his victim. Raoul's immediate outcry warns her against succumbing to the man's manipulative tactics. However, Olive's thoughts take a different turn. She reflects on her own decisions and actions that led them to this point. She realizes that if she hadn't embarked on the quest for gems and brought Raoul into this predicament, he wouldn't be trapped in this situation. Her determination to help him and undo her own actions gives her a newfound strength. In a surprising turn, Olive accepts the man's demand, shocking Raoul with her unanticipated sacrifice driven by genuine concern. Chapter 29. The man who had introduced himself as the owner of Dragonclaw quickly realized that his initial approach was ineffective in getting them to comply. He decided to propose a game, thinking that a test of their mutual understanding might yield different results. If their answers matched, he promised to release them. However, differing answers would result in their fate becoming a feast for his pets. The first question he posed was who should stay in their current predicament. Olive and Raoul's thoughts diverged on this matter due to their contrasting perceptions of each other. Olive's logic was rooted in the belief that Raoul had severe resentment toward her and would seize the opportunity to leave her behind without hesitation. However, in contrast, Raoul believed Olive to be the epitome of self-interest, and she, being the most selfish person on earth, alive, assumed she would quickly throw his name into the conversation. As the man initiated the countdown and then paused, awaiting their simultaneous response, their answers echoed through the air, revealing their opposing perspectives. The consequences of their mismatched responses were momentarily overshadowed by their mutual bewilderment about why they had chosen contradictory answers despite their true feelings. Growing frustrated with their bickering, the man decided to cease his ruse and delve into understanding the complex dynamics between the two. Olive remained steadfast in her determination to ensure Raoul's safety, prompting the man to jest about the possibility of a hidden affection for her servant. Their simultaneous expressions of disgust conveyed their mutual rejection of the idea. Olive clarified her motive, asserting that her actions were driven by a belief in the value of all lives and not any secret romantic feelings. The man chuckled at her explanation, suggesting that he would leave them unless they wished to become his pet's meal. With the devil's ivy finally releasing its grip and Raoul becoming untangled, they found themselves free to move once more. Confused by the sudden change in the man's demeanor, they hesitated before heeding his warning to flee. Taking Olive's hand, they sprinted away from the scene. Yet their escape was met with yet another twist. As Olive ran, her heart raced not only from the physical exertion but also from the man's cryptic words. He whispered something about the gem that shattered the stillness of the night, likening it to a sharpened sword ready to expose the truth. Olive stood perplexed, grappling with the enigmatic message that left her with more questions than answers.